ThreatLocker implements a least privileged approach to cybersecurity, blocking every executable unless specifically authorized by your team. This methodology mitigates ransomware, supply chain attacks, and zero-day exploits, and ensures 24/7, 365 protection for your organization. To learn more about how ThreatLocker can help prevent known and unknown threats in your digital environment, safeguard your data and operations from threat actors, and align your organization with respected compliance frameworks, visit securityweekly.com/ThreatLocker. Do your end users always, and I mean always without exception, work on company-owned devices and IT-approved apps? I didn't think so. So my next question is, how do you keep your company's data safe when it's sitting on all those unmanaged apps and devices? 1Password has an answer to this question: Extended Access Management. 1Password Extended Access Management helps you secure every sign-in for every app on every device because it solves the problems traditional IAM and MDM can't touch. Check it out at securityweekly.com/1Password. That's the number 1 password.
Welcome back to the Cyber Risk TV live stream for Oktane 2024 at Caesars Forum in Las Vegas. I'm your host, Mandy Logan, and today I'm joined by David Bradbury, who is the Chief Security Officer at Okta. And today we are talking about staying ahead of identity threats. David, welcome.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
I am so glad that you're here, and I personally am exceedingly happy to be at Oktane and to see such a profound event focused on what Okta brings. I am very curious, even with the discussion here, staying ahead of identity threats, is that feasible?
That's a great question. And I think before I answer, I love the atmosphere here at Oktane this year.
Yeah.
And it's been fascinating to see, I think, that the evolution of the membership of this group over the past couple of years, that, you know, Okta was born out of the idea of let's make identity easy. Mm-hmm. And it was really a sort of a new thing in the past few years that actually we have a really big role to play in the security side of things. So it was fascinating for me to see that yesterday our executive summit was hosted with more than half the representatives being CISOs, which a decade ago, that definitely was not the case. So it's fascinating to see. Yeah, it's great to see that so many security people now think that identity is that important.
Well, I am glad to see your observation on that, and yet coming from more of the security side, it seems intrinsically simple that, of course, security practitioners would be absolutely fascinated by keeping identity across all of the bots, all of the platforms, all the devices, all of the workflows, everything that has to be done. To me, it seems basic that security should be completely focused on identity.
Absolutely. I think that's the realization that so many people have had over the past couple of years, that you cannot have security without identity.
No.
And so I love the fact that now we're seeing the representatives at Oktane being so security heavy, and that's just fantastic. But keeping ahead of identity threats, this is always going to be a challenge. How do we actually do that as a company, and how do we make sure that we can use our powers for good across all of our customers? This has been something we've been really thinking hard on over the past 12 months is, how do we stay one step ahead of identity-based attacks? How can we make sure that we're not just reacting in the moment, that we're waiting for something to happen and then we look at it and then we try to solve? How can we actually start to think about our partnerships with some of the industry leaders like Google and Mandy and CrowdStrike, and actually leverage their intelligence and their understandings of what's happening over the horizon, and then start to make sure that we're thinking about how we can make changes to our products that actually prevent these things from happening. And that's been the really big shift for us as a company in the last 12 months, has gone from really that reactive approach of waiting and then reacting and responding, to really being on the front foot and being thoughtful about what's happening next, and making sure we're thinking about how do we prevent attacks from happening, but more appropriately, how do we make sure that we're taking a stronger role in protecting our customers and making sure that we are sometimes having to make decisions that are in their best interest from a security perspective, and not just allowing them to have to think about this and worry about this on their own. So this has been a big year for us.
That's fantastic. It does sound like it, and it's so beautiful to see the partnering, like myself looking into what has gone on with Okta and Zscaler. or like you mentioned, Okta and CrowdStrike, or Clear, or being able to see these specific partnerships that really, what has been some of your feedback from clients and from even, do you get feedback from end users on seeing the impact that those partnerships have made?
Particularly the CrowdStrike partnership has just been so wonderful for us over the past 12 months. One thing that I think gets lost a lot when we talk about partnerships and integrations between technology companies is we seem to talk in just raw numbers of how many things do you integrate with? And we actually fail to understand the depth of the integrations that are sometimes behind the scenes. So as Okta is the leading independent, neutral identity provider, that allows us to be unbelievably partnered with folks like CrowdStrike. And it's the depth of that partnership which has really been producing benefits. So if I dial back the clock back to December of last year, the OpenID Foundation came out with their shared signals framework. This idea that we should be able to share risk signals between technology companies without having to rely upon individual customers to try and do this themselves. And over the past 10 months, CrowdStrike and ourselves have implemented that protocol so that when you log in with Okta, and if you are using CrowdStrike, we're now leveraging them in real time to make an assessment of the security of your device. And that absolutely is at the core of making zero trust a reality. It's secure identity, it's secure devices, and it's being able to make decisions about where you are and whether you're the right person who should have that right access at the right time. And we're now seeing that as a reality. So the feedback that I get from customers, particularly around that specific integration, is just that it has unlocked their security architecture. It is delivering on things that they didn't think were possible years ago. And that's the reality that we're in today. And as the shared signals framework is more widely adopted, this is only going to strengthen how well we can deliver on zero trust for our customers.
Now, with that, can you give me just a ballpark of what percentage of impact you think that adoption would have on staying ahead of identity threats?
It's a great question. So if I think about the ways that attacks are being performed today against our customers, particularly if you think about info stealer malware, being able to steal passwords off somebody's device, if they've accidentally visited a link and they've somehow been able to download software. And I think about the effectiveness of CrowdStrike and being able to prevent those attacks. But let's think about that attack has just happened, and you are currently logged into 10 different applications. And so there's a window of opportunity where that threat actor could take a cookie or take your username and password and access those applications in real time.
So we've moved to post-authentication attacks.
Exactly. So
right.
This is where I really see the benefit here. So from a percentage perspective of being able to prevent these sorts of attacks, as we get better at sharing these risk signals, and as we get better with implementing single logout across all of these applications, in the instance where this happens, CrowdStrike immediately tells Okta, and then we tell all of the applications that you need to log out, you need to log out, you need to log out. And so if we can get the ecosystem to implement this across the board, it just eliminates that window of opportunity. So right now, I think that window of opportunity still is there, but we're slowly eating at it. And with every passing month, we have more people coming to the table with implementing the shared signals framework, and that's just going to continue to make it harder for attackers to be successful.
Okay, I want to go back to what you said there, because how fantastic is it to be the security team, to be the corporate, the C-suite, whatever, but go, we had this intel, and now we have successfully revoked permission to thousands of access points. Being able to do the single logout, like you mentioned, being able to do something like that. I feel that the ability of the team to have satisfaction is increased, which would increase the morale of the teams. Even though we're talking about the technical side, we've got to go back to the humans are the ones we care about. I'm curious on a statistic that I heard from you that said that across the data from your Okta customer base, that 96% of authentications are phishable, and that only 4% had, I'm guessing maybe YubiKeys, perhaps they were using YubiKeys. With going toward the zero trust strategies that Okta and that you yourself have really spearheaded and focused on, does it feel that you are able to take some of that burden off of customers who are not currently, who are still have the phishable authentications?
It's a great question. It's such a challenging area to think about the fact that in this day and age, phishing is still a thing. And sadly, in the last 12 months, we continue to see phishing attacks against our customers continue to rise. And there are a few reasons for that. One is that in the same way that we as a company deliver better products every year, phishing kits are getting better every year.
It's true,
It's very
sadly they
sad.
evolve.
And if you combine that with the proliferation of data brokers and our ability for people to find my personal address by only with a couple of data clicks, and then add in AI and ChatGPT into the mix, and now we have these personalized, grammatically perfect lures that are being used against people. I mean, phishing is more successful than ever right now for all of these reasons. And so it's exceptionally saddening for me to think that we as an industry have great solutions to prevent these, but they just aren't being adopted. Now, the statistic that you offered just then is actually a statistic from 12 months ago. It is slightly improved.
Oh, has it? Has it? Okay.
It's slightly improved. So we have a report that's come out this week, and we are currently seeing more adoption of Okta's FastPass and also YubiKeys. But we're still seeing it's still in the 90% plus range of all authentications on our platform are vulnerable to phishing. And so it's been interesting this week to chat to other CISOs and other customers and try and figure out what's stopping you. What's stopping you from adopting these technologies? And there are concerns on hardware keys and how difficult they are to deploy and manage. But I think we've done a lot with partnering with YubiKey to make sure that that's as easy as possible. And then on the FastPass side, this is our software product, which takes the burden away from having to deliver hardware keys. And I think on both sides of the spectrum, we have some really good solutions here. But it seems that the companies that have invested already in identity, they're happy with SMS, they're happy with push, and they find that it was a very hard cultural change for them to adopt multi-factor in the first place.
Now, did that matter based on the size of organization, or you just mean across the board?
Very much on the larger side.
Okay.
At larger scale enterprise companies, we're seeing that there's just big resistance culturally to revisiting the MFA discussion. And it's like, no, we already did that.
We're
we
doing
did
this, right?
already. We're like, what's wrong with this? Well, this is where we, as a company and as a security industry, need to shine the spotlight more on the fact that what you're doing today isn't enough. And that as threat actors wake up in the morning thinking, I'm going to target the person that I know I can invest the least amount of calories to be successful, this is where they're focused. They're focused on this broad base of individuals who are yet to adopt phishing-resistant technologies. If I share with you one positive, though, which is
please.
that in our most recent report released this week, where we looked at why is it that people are still using passwords? Are we seeing any great examples across our customer base where they've actually managed to stop using passwords altogether? Again, the word passwordless has been used for years now.
True.
Is it a reality for anyone? And happily it is. And it's not a big number, but it's a start, and it's 5% of all auths on our platform, 5. And so it's a starting point, and it's a proof point that we do have customers, and Okta is an example as well internally. We are wall-to-wall phishing resistant without passwords, but you can have a password-free existence. And so I think if we can somehow try to tie both of these things together, that we can revisit this multi-factor project that we did, that we can actually remove passwords altogether. That, I think, may be the ability for us to really push harder on this one.
That sounds beautiful. And as part of strategizing for what is coming, I always think of this phrase that I've gone through life, that what got you here won't get you there.
Well said.
Correct? But all of these steps have been vitally necessary. So, I mean, kudos. We adore that people have adopted multi-factor authentication at all.
Yes.
And you go, but this is just a step now to what also has to adjust.
Yes.
I am curious in our last minute or so here, that since you focus on zero trust adoption for your customers and across all of your partners, what are some of the first steps you would recommend for an organization looking to adopt more zero trust strategies?
So zero trust at its very most fundamental element is about two things. It's about secure identity and secure devices.
Okay.
And then making decisions about the combinations of those two things and whether someone should get access. And so when you're starting your zero trust journey, you need to be really careful about the partners that you choose to help you on both sides of that equation. When you're thinking about secure identity, you want to make sure that you've got somebody who's not just integrated with everything, but has depth of integration. Again, Okta's ability to be vendor neutral opens the door to so many technology companies who aren't fearful of us being a competitor. And so that allows us to go really deep and partner heavily with their engineering teams. But when you think about secure identity, make sure that you're balancing usability and security. Make sure that the company that you're working with is really focused on both of these.
Okay.
And make sure you apply the same on the device side, whether you're partnering with a CrowdStrike, a Zscaler, or Palo Alto, whoever's helping you with your devices and your networks, make sure that you're applying that same methodology. Are they integrated with the right things? And have they prioritized the usability of their product just as much as the security of their product? Get these things right, and you're off to a great start.
Oh, wow. David, I very much appreciate this, and I hope that it has encouraged all of our viewers to look further into the products, the services, the resources that Okta and your partners do bring to organizations today, and to be prepared for the future. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you to our audience for tuning in for this live interview from Oktane 2024. To find all of the Cyber Risk TV coverage for this year's event, please visit securityweekly.com/Oktane. Welcome back to the Cyber Risk TV live stream for Oktane 2024 at Caesars Forum in Las Vegas. I'm your host, Mandy Logan, and today I'm joined by Erin Baudo Felter, who is the Vice President, Social Impact and Sustainability at Okta. And today we are going to talk about addressing cybersecurity disparities. Now, what sort of disparities are we talking about?
Well, first of all, Mandy, thanks so much for having me. It's a thrill to be here. And yeah, I mean, we think a lot about the disparities around security, and it's multifaceted. So we think about, first, disparities across organizations. We know that cybersecurity and risks and threats are an issue certainly for every organization, right, large and small, but in particular for smaller organizations like nonprofits, as one example. They are so much more vulnerable to threats because of a variety of factors, including resourcing gaps, skill gaps, and frankly, just knowledge gaps. And so we think a lot about the ways in which we can do more to protect those organizations. We also think about disparities from the jobs perspective and the talent perspective.
Okay.
So how do we ensure that there's enough trained cyber talent out there to actually protect all of these organizations who need it? And so we're doing a lot of work in that area as well.
Oh, fantastic. And I am curious, so is it Okta's stance that there is a skills gap, that there is a need for many more practitioners than what are currently available?
It is. It is. And we see this from a few angles. So there's research out there that says, for example, that in the world today, there's a gap of 4 million cybersecurity jobs that remain unfilled. There's other kind of macro research that we look at to inform our position on these things. But I think more than that, we talk to our customers, we talk to our partners, and we look at our ecosystem, and everyone is struggling with this. There's just not enough skilled and qualified talent to fill the need that we see, again, in our ecosystem, in particular around identity security, which is obviously something Okta cares a lot about.
Absolutely. And I genuinely hold to the idea that identity is security.
Yes.
I do completely believe that. Now, I interact a lot of times with the security practitioner, analyst, SOC, and ethical hacking side of cybersecurity. And there's definitely been a lot of discourse on that side from practitioners going, well, if there's such a skills gap, why am I not finding employment easily?
Yeah.
And that's what's
absolutely.
curious. So your viewpoint is still, from everything you've seen in your ecosystem, the skills gap is widening.
Yes.
And do you have input on why that is? Is it simply because of the advent of AI, generative AI agents?
I mean, certainly there are more threats, and they're growing faster than ever. So that's the biggest problem. That's sort of driving everything else. The threat landscape is certainly the most challenging that I think anyone working today has ever seen.
True.
And we expect that it's only going to increase, again, because of things like AI just making it easier for threat actors to do bad things. So we definitely see that. And I think, in terms of what else we're seeing, there's many parts to how to bring somebody into this field and how to bring them in a way where they're skilled and ready to deliver value. There's recruitment challenges, and frankly, just like demystifying what working in cyber really is for people. Well,
absolutely.
You're laughing.
In fact, because I just had a conversation with Charlotte Wiley about how there have been instances that I have, once was a meeting with the Nevada State Department of Education. So it was individuals that were PhD levels, career counselors, and guiding and creating training forces. And I said, well, cybersecurity is a perfect fit for this and for disabled communities. Like, I am personally disabled and come forward, so I understand that side of it. And I said there's many, many benefits to the cybersecurity world for individuals that do need accommodations. And they would not believe that cybersecurity was a job.
Really?
They wouldn't. And so I would try to discuss and go, you're using your computer, you're using your cell phone.
Yep.
Every single transaction, every single time you are clicking anything, signing on to anything, that requires individuals and strategies, software, background, things that, all of the processes. And they still would not accept it. So I did research and had to put together kind of a whole dossier on that cybersecurity existed as a career path.
But I think that, we think everyone has perfect understanding because we're Okta and we do this, but really it's still, there's so much more education and awareness that's needed out in the world to make people understand the risks in their personal lives, the risks to their organizations. And so, a big part of what we focus on from the work that I lead, which is Okta for Good and Okta's social impact and sustainability program, it's really a lot about demystifying first and foremost. And the other thing we like to demystify is that a lot of people think that working in cybersecurity is this highly technical, right?
Absolutely.
Highly maybe solitary type of a role. And
you must know coding, and you must know every single, the history of every single item that's ever been created.
Yes, and you must look a certain way and come from a certain type of educational background. None of those things are true for those of us who know all of the variety of roles and jobs and skills that you need to do this work. Some of it, in fact, is very people-centric. When you think about things, one of the biggest needs we see in organizations large and small is around security culture. So how do you actually train and enable your staff to not click on a phishing link or to practice safe behaviors when it comes to how they're building products even? And so we enjoy that part of that, demystifying it. And we do a lot of work with organizations that are serving youth and folks who are sort of just getting their first exposure into tech and into cyber, and that's always very energizing because you sort of see the light bulb go off when students realize, it doesn't have to look one way, right? I can bring my passions, my personality, my interests into a role in cyber.
Absolutely, and I'd say I consistently meet with individuals. Just 2 nights ago, I had a very lengthy conversation with an individual who is mid-career change. From being a heart surgeon, an infant and adult heart surgeon. And he decided to go to a boot camp, has zeroed in on offensive security, and was attending his first security conference.
That's amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love that in this space, there's often that I get to speak with people who come from library science or fine arts or we're race car drivers, or there's a lot that can be utilized very effectively. And still, what I love about cybersecurity is so many individuals, their hearts are based on improving the greater good. 100%.
I always say this. I say, if you want a job with a purpose, which increasingly, that's what people want. That's what people want. They don't want to come to work and check a box and get a paycheck. They want to know they're contributing to the world. And I always say there's almost no better role than a role in cybersecurity if you want to find that purpose. And to your earlier point about all the different ways you can sort of bring people into this, we do some really interesting work with the UC Berkeley Center for Long-Term Cybersecurity.
Oh, interesting.
They're a partner of ours for the last several years. They have a cybersecurity clinic at UC Berkeley, and what they do is they take students who are interested in getting hands-on real-world, cyber experience, and they pair them with high-risk nonprofits who are vulnerable, maybe more than your average nonprofit, to politically motivated attacks or...
Well, I know that we had the session about the partnering with the Trevor Project.
Yes.
as
Oh,
an
that's a great example. Yes.
Right.
So lots of organizations maybe focus on LGBTQ issues or reproductive rights or
Right.
various things. They pair these students after some coursework with these nonprofits to do things like security risk assessments and hands-on help. And the director of the program was actually here earlier speaking in a session, and I was chatting with him afterward, and he was talking about the fact that many of the students come in that are pursuing a master's in cybersecurity, and so that's very obvious, and that's great. And then there's sort of this other way in, which is a lot looser, where they get students from computer science and management information system, but then they also get them from policy. He was talking about a student who was a psychology major who came into the program and is now finding ways to connect her passion for psychology into thinking about how do you actually change people's minds to help them protect themselves from cyber threats. So there's really cool things happening.
It is fascinating. And I came to be around cybersecurity actually after having been in construction engineering and management, but then going through injuries that required neurological rehabilitation, and the things that needed to be done with a neurological system, to me, overlapped very easily with what was going on with network security.
Interesting.
Identifying exploits, vulnerabilities, and creating a more secure posture. And I guess you could say that was more secure posture to be able to stand up. So there are constantly surprising things. And I want to go back to what you said about training. Now, when you were talking about Okta's initiatives for training, was that for organizations to train their current employees to avoid phishing attacks? Or are you talking about training individuals to become cybersecurity practitioners?
So we think about it in a few ways, and I'll speak a little bit about Okta's cybersecurity workforce development initiatives.
Please.
It's something we announced last year. We've put several $1 million of philanthropic support behind it. So we're funding organizations like the UC Berkeley Center for Long-Term Cybersecurity, like I mentioned, organizations like CodePath that are actually helping students learn and get hands-on experience with things like cybersecurity. Also organizations like Women in Cybersecurity to support more folks getting into the industry, certifications, networking to find jobs. So there's a philanthropic aspect that lets us reach into communities that might not already have easy access to these kinds of job opportunities, skill development opportunities, et cetera. There's also a push that we're making specifically around Okta training and Okta certification because, like I said earlier, we need more cyber talent overall, and in particular because of where we sit, we see that we need more identity security talent. Very much across our ecosystem. And so what we've done is we've made 5,000 scholarships available for folks who are recently unemployed, for veterans and military spouses to receive free Okta training and certifications as a way to accelerate folks who, it's not their first rodeo. They've worked in tech, they've had careers in the military. They can be pretty quickly trained if they just have the opportunity to pivot into this new topic around identity security and Okta expertise. And so we have opened this up to them so that we can also sort of attack this issue of more immediate need for talent, in seats tomorrow. So that's how we think about that.
That I love seeing the real world actionable items that individuals can take initiative and they can come forward. So how does an individual take advantage of the scholarship program?
So the program is called What's Next by Okta, and you can Google it and find information about it. And it's available now. We've seen great response with folks who are excited about it, and our team is putting a lot of energy and support behind it as well. So I encourage folks to check that out.
Fantastic. So I am also very curious about Okta from its start chose to make sure that they were using the platform for good and for social impact and even for sustainability. Now, what has been your experience interacting with other organizations and large corporations that don't have that same embedded focus toward security and toward being a platform for good?
Yeah. Thank you for that question. It's a huge reason why I've been at Okta almost 8 years, and
Oh, have you? Yes.
and it's a huge reason why I'm still here. Is that, like I said earlier, people want to have purpose to their jobs. They want to come to work for a bigger reason, and Okta's been a place, certainly for me, and I know for many others, where we've been able to do that. I mean, I give credit to our co-founders and our CEO Todd McKinnon for like walking the walk, frankly, and making it clear that we were here to, as he would say, we want to attract people to work at Okta who want to solve big problems, not just for ourselves or even for our customers, but for the world. And so I think this spirit of like purpose has permeated Okta's culture and why people show up here since the very beginning. And then, when you get to brass tacks, it's also a very smart business decision to invest in social and environmental impact. More and more, we're seeing that Okta's customers, our 19,000 plus customers all over the world, from every industry, from every geography, they are increasingly asking us as their vendor to step up and to prove that we have made commitments around environmental sustainability, around diversity, equity, inclusion, around human rights, around social impact, because it's important to them. So when you think about it, it becomes first and foremost something we believe in, but I think more and more a smart way to meet our customers where they are, to differentiate ourselves, and to be a good partner to them, which is our number one goal.
Interesting. I am curious because my understanding is that your parents have a large impact on why you are in this field.
Oh,
Correct?
yes.
Okay, so in our last minute, I'm curious because my understanding is that your mother was more of the hippie world.
Yes, I'll give you the 60-second.
Right.
But yeah.
Well, and what I want to know
Yeah.
is there anything? What specifically would she be most proud of, like the partnership with the Honnold Foundation, or what would she be interested in?
Oh, well, that's a really lovely question. Thank you for asking. So yes, the short story is my mother was a hippie who marched for civil rights in the 60s. My father was in the military and then became a business leader, and they made me. And so here I am trying to do all the things, I guess. What would she be most proud of? My mom was always a little bit of a counterculturalist, and so maybe she'd just be most proud of the fact that in sort of a corporation where the way that things flow is toward quarterly results and financial results and all the things that we got to do.
All the strict numbers and all of the accounting. Yes.
Right? Like all the things that that maybe I've been able to turn some of our energies and resources toward things that otherwise wouldn't get that attention, and those things involve, making the world a little bit better, a little bit more equitable, and I think she'd be proud of that. So.
I absolutely agree, and I think she would be very proud about. I love that the budget that would have gone to SWAG went to the Honnold Foundation for increasing power availability in areas that don't have it around the world.
Absolutely. We're very proud of our work with the Honnold Foundation as just one example of some of the organizations that we support around climate action. So we're happy to support them this week.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So Erin, thank you so much for sharing with us.
Appreciate it.
Thank you to our audience for tuning in for this live interview from Oktane 2024. To find all the Cyber Risk TV coverage of this year's event, visit securityweekly.com/Oktane.